"If you don't have a balance, you have no moral standing," said the manager. But the simple customer was the bank's president. The manager's first sentence cut across the lobby like a blade. "If you don't have a balance, you don't have any moral standing." The entire branch heard it. The faux leather chairs creaked under customers, pretending to stare at their phones while their eyes climbed, hungry, toward the preferred service counter. Anna Clark, at Teller 2, felt her stomach tighten. It wasn't just the public humiliation. It was the way Mark Rogers lifted his chin, as if his tie authorized him to erase people from the map. In front of him, an older man in a plaid shirt, worn trousers and scuffed boots held a manila envelope. He carried a beaten blue backpack and his hand trembled slightly, not with fear but with aim, as if measuring each word he'd say. He had asked to renegotiate fees and fix an automatic debit that, according to him, he had never authorized. Mark not only refused, he raised his voice. "This isn't a charity." The branch hung in the air as if the clocks were holding their breath. Anna felt the pressure of the line and the weight of routine, but in that instant, the routine shattered. The man, who had introduced himself simply as Vincent, opened the envelope and pulled out a small notebook. Taped inside it with clear tape were little printed slips, receipts, dates, protocol numbers. "I have enough moral standing to work and get up at 5, sir. I just want to understand why you're charging me for a package I cancelled." A woman in line, kids tugging at her arm, murmured a quiet, "That's right," like a prayer. Mark gave a short, dry laugh. "Show me your balance, Mr. Vincent. Show me what you've got." The moral question rang in Anna's head, as if someone had written it with a permanent marker on her consciousness. Since when does dignity fit on a bank statement? Anna wanted to step in, but she knew how that ended for employees who didn't follow protocol. After all, her life was a strict, almost brutal sequence of invisible protocols. Leave home at 6:10, take 2 buses, hook the register up at 8:01, check cash, smile at people spitting impatience, close at 4 p.m., with her neck aching, and go grab her mother's medicine at the clinic before it ran out. Even so, Anna's hand moved on its own. She stamped date, time, the edge of Vincent's notebook, a small and risky gesture. "At least it shows you sought service today," she said under her breath. That gesture, always an automatic ritual for Anna, stamp, align, give receipt, suddenly carried weight. Vincent looked at her and smiled only with his eyes. Mark didn't like it. "No need to dramatize, Anna." He turned his back and called for security. "Roger, please escort this customer to the door. He's causing a scene." The guard hesitated. "But, Mr. Rogers, he's just—" "The door, Roger." Vincent didn't budge. Instead, he pulled a letter-sized sheet, tri-folded and worn at the edges, from the envelope. He unfolded it and held it up for anyone who wanted to see. It was a letter on the bank's own letterhead, dated 3 months prior, confirming the cancellation of the service package under Protocol X8719 with the digital signature of an employee from another branch. "I got this by email, printed it at the center down the street. The package is cancelled, but they keep charging me," he said. Anna, moving quickly, asked a gentleman at Teller 3 to excuse her, walked around the counter, and reached for the paper. The digital signature matched. The protocol existed. That small material proof rang like an alarm bell in the hushed hall. Mark pressed his lips, tossed a "I'll check with Central," and stretched out his hand, asking for the paper back. Vincent returned it to the envelope and resealed the tape. "Does it cost you anything to look at what's already here?" The line, once impatient, became an audience. It was Monday, but the branch felt like a theater. A young man in a hoodie whispered, "Record it, record it." Anna felt the vein in her neck throb. If she kept quiet, she'd be complicit. If she spoke, she'd be a target. This was more than a fee quarrel. It was a test of backbone. She thought of her mother, who told her every night, when Anna set a bowl of soup by the couch, "Honey, we're only poor in money. The rest is a choice." Then the register beeped. An automatic debit had been added to Vincent's SSN 2 weeks earlier. Total Premium Protection Insurance, the most expensive one. Anna clicked the event magnifier. A field showed recorded authorization with date and time. "But who adds it like this?" she muttered, mostly to herself. The screen flickered and for a second displayed the ID of the employee who'd operated it. 4029 Mistar, Mark Rogers. The revelation was simple and brutal. A cold wave ran up Anna's arms. With a small motion, she tilted the screen toward herself and printed the audit trail, a tiny font internal report on thermal paper. She folded it and tucked it under the keyboard. She'd wait for the right moment. Vincent stood steady. "I just want to pay what I owe and stop paying what I don't." Mark, now aware the audience had grown, put on his lecturing tone. "Sir, no balance, no conversation. Banks don't run on emotion." "Who does?" asked the woman with the children. No one answered. The clock read 9:18. Vault deliveries would be late. The AC hummed like a beehive. Anna cleared her throat. "Mr. Vincent, if you'll allow me, I can open a formal request based on that letter you brought. It generates a number and—" Mark cut her off. "No, I set the procedures here." He leaned over the counter, his face too close to Vincent's. "Leave. Come back when you have money. Then we talk." The man in boots squared his shoulders. He didn't drop his eyes. When he spoke, his voice didn't shake. "Then tell me, manager, how many digits does a man's moral worth take?" The question hung over the lobby, asked to no one and to everyone. With the thermal paper burning in her blazer pocket, Anna knew that day had to end differently. If not, nothing inside her would survive the shift. Anna arrived before 8, as always, with a cold lunch and a tiredness that started at home. The two-room apartment at the end of the avenue smelled of medicine and sautéed onions. Her mother had a dry cough that got worse in the cold. Anna's salary, for all its regularity, was squeezed between bus fare, gas, pharmacy runs, and the financing on a fridge she'd bought in 12 installments. Ironically, the bank was where she counted money that would never be hers. Still, there was dignity in the opening ritual, checking seals, signing the cash ledger, testing the counter, verifying the vault while the guard's face stayed impassive. She liked to align the bills by value, faces all the same way, as if she could impose order on the world with a handful of paper. Mark, by contrast, arrived at 9:05 on the dot, immaculate shirt, a rush that sounded like contempt. He had a modest background. He repeated this in meetings, but liked to emphasize he'd made it on grit and didn't owe anyone anything. Anna had heard stories. He hit targets, pushed aggressive upsells on insurance and high-fee cards. He'd gotten a bonus months earlier and a resort trip. He wasn't a monster. He was a man who learned to survive by selling bridges to people who only needed to cross the street. That didn't absolve him. It just explained him. Vincent had shown up that morning as if he carried another whole story on his shoulders. In his notebook, besides the printed letter, there were pencil-written sheets. Water, electricity, fertilizer, a column of ins and outs that reminded Anna of old bank ledgers, when passbooks were stamped at every move. Anna, who used to get annoyed at customers' papers, felt a kind of quiet respect. There was order there, discipline, someone trying not to get lost. In the back, on the kiosks, an institutional video played with upbeat music and slogans about taking care of every stage of your life. It was almost comic. The bank promised warmth on LED screens, but the echo of Mark's shoes on the porcelain floor set the institution's true tone. He had called the regional office early and got notice. Auditors would make a surprise visit that week, reviewing sales practices. Maybe that's why he was extra wired. Maybe he feared adjustments might be frowned upon or applauded depending on who looked. Anna thought about this when the system showed 4029 MR, not a glitch. The internal report didn't lie. The premium insurance added to Vincent's account came from a terminal in the branch on a Saturday at 12:52 p.m., a time when the branch was closed, but some managers did back office. A generic authorization code was attached, like those used when clients signed tablet bundles. Anna had seen Mark adjust services to make targets easier. She'd argued with him privately weeks before. It's for the client's own good, Anna. But does he know? He'll see the protection working. You prefer him unprotected? She preferred he decide. That memory resurfaced when Vincent calmly asked about how many digits. Some customers laughed, nervous. Others shook their heads. An elderly woman who came monthly to get her pension crossed herself. Anna drew a long breath. She remembered her mother saying, "Girl, when no one speaks, we become the voice that didn't come out." The sentence stuck to her bones. She called the next person, but her hands, independent, stubborn, quietly pulled the thermal paper audit trail and folded it into quarters like shielding a lit match from the wind. She slipped it into the inner pocket of her blazer. The line moved, bills trickled in. The machine spit acronyms and numbers, and Anna tried to decide what to do with that little dangerous treasure. Hand it to whom? To Mark? To the complaint hotline that existed only in a footer link? To the auditor promised to appear sometime this week. A notification popped up. Notice, Ethics Week. values that move us. Anna almost laughed. Here in front of her, ethics was asking for the floor. Roger, the security guard with 2 daughters and a gentle manner, drifted closer. "You saw that?" He was rough. Anna nodded. "Roger, do me a favor?" She glanced at the ceiling cameras, leaned in, and spoke softly. "When the auditor gets here, let me know first, quietly. It's important." Roger didn't ask why. He just said, "Okay." 15 minutes later, Vincent was still there, not making a fuss, standing like a tree, steady, holding his envelope. The woman with the kids had left, and a man in a cap offered him a seat. "Sit a bit, buddy." Vincent thanked him, didn't sit. "I've stood for enough in life. I can wait a bit more." Anna, from a distance, mentally noted the sentence. There was something about Vincent that didn't match the cliché of a simple customer. He watched everything. He wasn't offended for sport. He argued methodically. When they reached for a shortcut, he answered with proof. When they demanded a balance, he replied with a question. It was as if he were testing the branch, not out of arrogance, but conviction. At 9:47, movement arrived. The revolving door clicked, and a man in a light grey suit, discreet tie, thin-rimmed glasses walked in. He carried a black briefcase and wore a lanyard, whose holder hid his name. He looked more like a consultant than a cop. He greeted security, exchanged a brief look with Mark, and the two went into the glass office. Anna saw in the reflection the manager straighten, smile with all teeth, offer coffee. The man who declined asked for an overview of operations, voice low and steady. The auditor had something enigmatic about him. Vincent, looking at the TV, turned his head slightly as if hearing a distant meow. The enigma, Anna sensed, had an address. Routine seemed to continue, but the feeling that the floor hid a step appeared like a premonition in her bones. In the back of her mind, an old hunch took shape. What if Vincent wasn't just what he seemed? Not a grand fantasy, rather someone who, for some reason, chose to pass unseen. Anna pushed the thought away, afraid she was romanticizing the man in boots. It was early. The proofs she had were different. An official letter, an audit trail, an impatient manager. The rest would come from what they did with those. The event that made change inevitable began with a trivial sound, the token's chirp. The auditor, still in the glass room, asked for aggregated sales reports from the last 6 weeks. Mark, smooth, minimized. "We're aggressive, sure, but within policy." The auditor didn't smile. "I want to see adherence." Anna saw in the glass reflection Mark hesitate half a second before typing his password. The system lagged. The branch seemed to breathe slower. Outside, the line had thinned. Vincent still waited, now chatting with the man in a cap about rain and corn prices. The envelope stayed tucked under his arm. Anna called the next in line, completed 2 deposits, a payment, a withdrawal. Then, as if fate had heard the "how many digits," her register froze. On the screen, "Operation requested by Central Audit, release trail consult." Anna blinked. She'd never gotten that. The auditor had requested a sweep of the branch itself. "Roger," she called, eyes forward. "He's already digging?" Roger nodded subtly. "And looks like he found something." Anna's heart beat in 2 rhythms, fear and relief wrestling for the same space. She slipped her hand into her inner pocket and felt the thermal paper. It could be a match or gasoline. Mark emerged from the room, smile reapplied. "Folks, for now, some operations may be temporarily unavailable due to an internal procedure. Thanks for understanding." Trained voice, padded vocabulary. The auditor stood behind, taking in everything. "May I speak with the team, manager?" he asked gently. Mark gathered the tellers. Anna, the teller 3 guy, and the teller 4 woman lined up. "I want to understand how you've been offering add-ons. Who decides to include services when a client doesn't have the package?" Anna answered what she always answered. "When the client agrees." The auditor nodded. "And when they don't, we respect it." "Always?" The silence that followed was short, but enough to make Eric, at teller 3, shift his eyes. "Has there been pressure to hit targets by auto-including?" The heavy word flew over their heads. Mark jumped in, feigning lightness. "The company has goals, sure, but we play clean here." The auditor kept the look of someone catching wind on his face. "Great. Then I'll need weekend premium service inclusion reports for the past 2 months. The sentence went through Mark, who couldn't find where to put his hands. "Sure." That's when Vincent asked to speak. "If it's not too much, I'd just like to resolve my problem. I have proof." The auditor looked at him for the first time, measuring without hurry. "What is it?" Vincent held out the printed letter. Cancelled package, still charging, and they put expensive insurance on my SSN. I didn't authorize it. The auditor took the page, checked letterhead, protocol number, date. Do you have anything else? I do. Vincent peeled from the notebook, an old 1x1-inch photo showing him younger in a suit, but tucked it back before anyone could see clearly. This isn't relevant now. The gesture felt encrypted, as if to say, there are more layers than you think. Anna felt it was time to open her pocket. I, out of duty, printed the audit trail for the inclusion of the service on his account. She spoke loud enough for other tellers to hear. Mark shot her a look that could burn. That's not procedure, Anna. It's a record. She handed the paper to the auditor. He read it, cross-checked numbers with the screen. Terminal 04, Saturday, 12:52 p.m., ID 429MR. Mark cleared his throat. The team sometimes uses my access when I'm in a meeting. The auditor didn't look at him. Who was in the branch Saturday at 12:52? Roger answered before Mark could build a version. Only you, sir. The air changed density. The catalyst had fired. The auditor, without raising his voice, stated, from now on, no ad on sale is valid without a physical signature or a clean recorded consent, and this specific case will go to the regional manager. Mark tried to laugh. People, please, let's not turn routine into drama. I just want what's mine. Vincent cut in steady. And what isn't? Take off my name. Mark's phone buzzed. He turned away, whispering, no, it's under control. Yes, an auditor. No, nobody recorded, I think. At I think, his neck stiffened. Two people in line had their cameras open. He knew those images could be worth more than a 30-page report. Anna breathed. The scene was set, but one piece was missing. With a Tide reader's calm, Vincent took a black, unbranded metal card with no visible numbers from his envelope. It was a discreet corporate card, the kind you never see in ads. I used this in a meeting last month, he said casually. Not here, downtown HQ. Anna saw the subtlest change in the auditor's mood. A muscle by his mouth stopped. What do you do for work? Vincent answered, while looking at the branch, not the man in front of him. Banking. The silence repeated it for everyone, twice, 3 times. Banking. Mark tried another laugh to mislead. Yeah, who doesn't? We all have accounts. Vincent opened his phone gallery, showed a photo, a big meeting table, multiple folders, the bank's logo on the wall, not this branch's, the main office. In the back, himself at the head, not as a visitor but occupying the chair, not sharp enough to be formal proof. A suggestion, a clue for anyone with eyes. The auditor returned the letter, folded Anna's paper, and in a tone mixing velvet with steel, asked, Mr. Vincent, could you stay a little longer? Vincent nodded. I can. I said I could wait. It was no longer about if something would happen. It was when, and in front of whom. The first win came as a small banner at the top of the screen. Charge disputed. Procedure accepted. The system honored the retroactive cancellation of Vincent's fees, with a refund scheduled within 48 hours. A small light in a dark hallway. Anna's shoulders loosened one notch. Mark bit his lip, saw the message, pretended not to notice. See how it's resolved, he tried to imply. Just follow the flow. Anna held back the reply. He hadn't unlocked that flow. The auditor asked to hear the authorization audio tacked onto the premium insurance. They played it on low speaker in the glass room, but sound leaked into the hall. A woman's voice repeated, choppy, "Do you authorize?" And the client's reply was barely audible, a timid drowned in background noise, like a phone recording without clarity. "That's not consent," said the auditor. "That's noise," Mark argued. "Central approves these by sample." The auditor wrote notes, didn't debate. Like everything that day, victory had a cost. A polo-shirted man who'd been waiting 30 minutes snapped, "I work too. It's not only him who has problems." Anna went to him, asked for his ID, spoke calmly. "I'll speed yours up." She handled 2 people with near choreographed skill, without losing track of what her eyes already told her. The auditor had turned back to Vincent with the attention of someone recognizing a man from another arena. Anna's phone vibrated hard, the school calling about her niece. She answered quickly and heard her sister's tense voice. "Mum fainted on the way to the bathroom. I'm taking her to the clinic." Anna's world spun a notch. "I'll go there. Don't come now. We're almost there. Just pray." Praying was what Anna did while opening and closing cash drawers. The tiny win at the register cast a shadow over a private panic. She wanted to throw off her badge and run, but she knew if she did, Mark would call her emotional and punish her later. She slipped a hand into her blazer pocket and pressed the thermal paper like holding her mother's hand in the dark. "Be strong, ma'am," she thought for her mother and herself. Reading the tide, Vincent approached Anna's counter, waiting his turn in respectful silence. When she looked at him, he only asked, "Everything okay there?" Anna hesitated, nodded halfway. "It will be," she answered, unaware of the double meaning. He then took from his envelope a yellowed 4:6 photo of an old branch from the 1980s. Wooden counters, men in grey suits, women with high-set hair, metal files. In the corner, a young man with a wide tie held a stamp like a trophy. "I worked behind a counter like that for years," he said. "A stamp weighs as much as the hand that brings it down." Anna stared at the photo as if it were a distant relative's portrait. "Is that why you wrote everything down?" "It's why I don't accept when they erase what's written." The material proof, the old photo, was memory and argument at once. Anna understood without him explaining. Someone who spent life signing and stamping knows the difference between signature and scrawl. "I'll follow your refund from start to finish," she promised. It wasn't a commercial line, it was a personal vow. Mark reappeared with another smile. "We resolved your fee. Now as for the insurance, I'll personally review it." The auditor standing by added, "And record it." Vincent nodded. "Thank you. But there's another thing." He took out an old paid loan slip, a penalty for early payoff that had never been returned. "There's a bit they still owe me." Mark tried to cut it short. "Not now." The auditor intervened. "Let's see it." Vincent placed the slip with 2 staples and a handwritten note. Called on the 12th, told 5 business days. Called on the 20th, told 5 more. The branch, pulsing with daily mini-dramas, wanted to land right there. Anna typed. A grey screen few knew opened. She used it sometimes to fix clearing errors. Hidden in a field was a residual balance of a 7384, small but a pure matter of principle. "You're right," she said, feeling the microscopic joy of finding a coin in the couch lining. That balance was never returned. Vincent's smile tugged at one corner. "I brought the right staple." The partial win took shape, but with each gain, the social rope tightened. Someone in the back muttered about friends in high places. Another customer filmed Mark's face as he held his chin, measuring words. The auditor talked little, but his silence worked like a magnifying glass. Anna, taken by a sense of responsibility she couldn't name, realized she was taking risks for someone she barely knew. Still, everything in her said, "It's right. The price could come later." Her sister called back with a short update. "Stabilized. IV fluids. Doctor says it was a blood pressure drop. Come at the end of your shift." Anna breathed quietly. She looked at Vincent and said, "I'll see this through." He replied, "So will I." External pressure crashed down. An email from Regional, a message in the manager's group chat, 2 impatient customers threatening to switch banks, and on top of it all, a note from legal requesting preliminary explanations about commercial practices. Mark sweated under the AC. The suit, more expensive than Anna's rent, clung to his back. He wasn't pure villain. He was a man cornered by a culture that turned targets into dogma. The problem was he chose that altar daily. The auditor, voice low, asked the team to come to the main floor. "We'll resolve this transparently." The request sounded like an order in gloves. Mark swallowed. "We need to protect the brand," he tried. The auditor returned. "Transparency protects the brand." A woman in a blue blazer, hair up, the look of someone who manages fires, pushed through the door. "I'm Helen, Regional." She greeted everyone without rush, set eyes on the auditor like identifying an ally or a risk. She looked at Vincent with technical curiosity, as if he were a spreadsheet demanding attention. "Let's be objective. What do we have?" The auditor summarized in 2 lines. Helen asked for the papers. Anna handed copies, the letter, the trail, the residual screen. Helen read fast, index finger marking each line. "Clear as glass," she said. "Total amount of improper charges." Anna tapped the keys, added 3 months of fees, 2 bi-weekly premiums, and the unpaid residual, $597.84. Vincent raised an eyebrow, thought it was less. "Drips make a river," Anna said, not intending to be poetic. Helen ordered an immediate refund in front of the customer, with her signature. Mark tried to argue, "Process." Helen cut politely. "The process is called making it right." A man in the back tapped the bench 3 times in approval. The whole branch realized something unusual was happening. Power for a moment had come down to the floor. But Mark's problem had siblings. 2 prior cases with different names appeared on the auditor's report. Lords P and Severino A, both with add-ons at odd hours. Tactical pressure turned strategic. Is this a pattern? Helen asked without raising her voice. Mark adjusted his tie. We have aggressive targets and clear limits, the auditor returned. Mark's face tightened. No one cares when we bring results. The silence came back around and bit him. I care, Anna said, surprised by her own boldness. Blood hummed in her ears. Helen looked at her, weighed the risk, and nodded a millimeter. Thank you. Legal pressure also nipped. A court officer walked in with a summons for the branch on another customer's case. Not this case, but symbolically devastating. The bank, always quick to demand everyone's punctuality, now got a taste of someone else's. Day of messages, Roger muttered, and Anna almost laughed despite the knot in her stomach. Helen asked for 10 minutes with the auditor and Mark. 10 minutes that felt like 3 hours. When they returned, she brought decisions, refunds made, new add-on sales suspended for 7 days, target review, and Mark, you're temporarily removed from branch management until the inquiry ends. The room swallowed a single breath. A rare kind of justice. Not revenge, consequence. Mark reached for the counter as if for a handrail. I've dedicated my life to this. Helen wasn't cruel, which is why you should understand the weight of decisions. He passed by Anna, and for a second, his eyes asked for something strange, maybe understanding. She didn't know. Bigger things lay ahead than secret sympathies. Vincent, a bus to the clinic, a mother on an IV. Before he left, Mark tried one last move. He approached Vincent and lowered his voice to private conversation level. You got what you wanted. I overdid it. We didn't need this circus. Vincent didn't answer with sarcasm. I didn't set up the tent. He extended his hand. Mark hesitated, then shook it. He left with hard steps, cologne trailing, the shadow of a choice behind him. Helen turned to Vincent. Any other pending issue? He shook his head. Then he took one last item from the envelope. An old badge with the bank's 3 decades ago logo and a name printed in letters no one uses anymore. Vincent August Lane, President's Office. Helen straightened. The auditor tilted his head, and Anna felt goosebumps prickle. I worked here back when the stamp weighed more than the target, Vincent said. Today I came to understand what moral worth costs when the balance is small. The fall came with an emotional blow Anna didn't expect. As soon as Helen organized the papers and the auditor jotted final notes, Anna's phone rang again, her sister crying softly. The doctor wants Mom under observation. She asked for you. Anna wanted to run, but the clock said there was an hour left in her shift and the cash flow wouldn't close itself. Roger saw the fear on her face. Go, I'll close with Eric. Reflexively, she said, You can't. I can take care of people, he said, with a kindness that almost hurt. Isn't that what we've been talking about all day? Anna looked at Helen, who understood without a word. Go, Helen authorized. Life doesn't wait for protocol. Anna took off her blazer, grabbed her bag, when Vincent lightly touched her shoulder. Take advice from a man who likes the counter. Record everything. How so? When someone lets you do the right thing, stamp it in your memory. Don't let it look like a favor. Anna smiled without humor. I stamp well. At the door, almost out, Anna heard Helen say in a neutral tone with an edge, Mr. Vincent, they say you worked in banking. They do, he replied. Helen stepped closer. With which bank? Vincent shrugged. This one. The auditor finished the sentence no one dared say. With the presidency? Vincent slid the old badge back into the envelope and instead of answering with a resume, chose a story. When I was young, stamping all day, I learned every branch is a small town. Everyone thinks they know who's who. And sometimes you choose to be nobody to see who still does what's right when nobody's watching. No fanfare, no loud reveal. But enough for Helen to grasp there was someone here whose opinion could pass through walls. She inhaled like tuning a piano. In any case, thank you for the lesson. The auditor stifled a smile that wasn't buddy-buddy, but recognition. Outside, late sun poured gold over the sidewalk. Anna hurried to the bus stop. Her heart wanted shortcuts, her legs obeyed lights and corners. At the stop, an unknown number called. Anna Clark, said a polite male voice. I'm from Client Relations at HQ. I'm with Helen and the auditor. We want to thank your professionalism and ask for your help on a new practices committee. Just one meeting, you don't need to accept now. Anna heard like a radio with static. My mother is in the hospital. The voice shifted tone. Then later, I can send an email with the audit trail and step-by-step suggestions. Please do. and if you agree, we'll talk later." On the bus, windows open, the city slid by in pieces. A crooked fish market sign, a kid kicking bottles, a woman balancing grocery bags, and the whole world. Anna thought of Mark, not the messianic target chaser, but the man who clenched a fist before shaking Vincent's hand. She thought of small choices, of the many times she herself had let little injustices slide to avoid trouble, and she thought of her morning ritual: align bills, test machine, stamp. What would that ritual be tomorrow after all this? At the clinic, her mother sat pale but awake. "This girl is slow, huh?" her sister teased. Anna dropped into a plastic chair, laughing tears of relief. Her mother squeezed her hand with surprising force for someone who'd been weak minutes ago. "Your hand is cold. It's the bank's AC." "That's a lie. It's fear mixed with courage." Anna widened her eyes. "How do you know?" "It's the mix that raised you." For a second, the world wasn't branch, spreadsheet, target. It was the right sentence in the right mouth. At the same hour, Vincent walked 2 blocks from the branch, thinking about the weight of decades. Phones rang, messages were sent, and he answered few with later. He went into an old diner, ordered drip coffee, sat at the counter, said nothing. He had the serenity of someone who tested the fabric and found strength. The server tried small talk about last night's game. Vincent smiled and thanked him. The world returned to normal on the outside. Inside, tectonic plates had shifted. That night, after bringing her mother home, the air once again held the smell of onions in the pan. Anna washed dishes, tucked her mother in, sat at the kitchen table and opened her laptop. She wrote the promised email, attached the trail, described the procedure, suggested simple UI tweaks to reduce unauthorized add-ons. Each sentence was objective, no cursing, no poetry. At the end, she typed one line: "Our job isn't to sell what the client doesn't know they bought. It's to protect what they don't have yet." It felt grandiose. She deleted it, rewrote: "Our job is to make it easier, not invade." Send, close, breathe. She slept late, dreaming of stamps coming down on air, leaving invisible words hanging: respect, proof, limit. In the morning, the same alarm sounded sharper. She dressed, tied her hair, grabbed her blazer and left, feeling the road to the branch still had steps she couldn't see. That's exactly what kept her alert. Anna walked into the branch and knew immediately the place's energy had a new owner. It wasn't the rush of targets anymore. It was the attentive hush of being watched. Mark wasn't in the office. In his place, a poster with temporary instructions. No add-on services this week. Prioritize resolution. Record clear consent. Eric, usually the jokester, was serious. Roger greeted her with gravity, and then, as if the day demanded a witness, Vincent walked in with an ordinary step and a presence no longer labelable as simple customer. He wore the same clothes as the day before, refusing theatrics. Plaid shirt, worn boots, manila envelope. But something in the way he rested his hand on the counter revealed a new axis. Anna smiled with her eyes. He returned the thread of complicity. Minutes later, Helen arrived with the auditor. "We'll hold an open talk with customers about rights and duties and open a review channel for charges." An unprecedented announcement. 3 people clapped on reflex. Others looked wary, used to promises that die in the air. Vincent didn't clap. He watched. Then 2 men in dark suits entered together, synchronized like twin commas. One, older, completely white hair, posture of someone who'd crossed hard rooms, wore a small lapel pin with the bank's logo. Anna didn't recognize him at first. Roger gently touched her shoulder. "The board." The word moved through the branch like a rain alert. The older man smiled at the guard, said a shieldless "good morning," and went straight to Vincent. "August," he said, using what sounded like a middle name. Vincent lifted his eyes and replied, "Henry." Not a hierarchical greeting, a respectful one between equals. Helen approached, tense. The board member, now clearly so, explained simply that he'd heard of a case that sums up bigger dilemmas and had come to listen. He stood in the middle, facing the glass office but deliberately outside it. "This is where it happens," he said, indicating the lobby and lines. "Not in there." Mark walked in at that moment in a lighter shirt, no tie, called in to speak. He looked like he hadn't slept. The board member saw him, nodded respectfully. "Mr. Rogers, correct?" "Yes, sir. Thank you for coming." The branch turned into a public square. Helen, with trained voice, laid out the facts. An improper charge identified, dubious consent for insurance, a residual not returned, inappropriate behavior. She named errors and merits without humiliation. Anna saw the value of that tone, firm, not cruel. Next, the auditor displayed on a portable monitor system screens, sensitive data covered, to show how the failures occurred. When incentives reward shortcuts, shortcuts become roads. That line stuck. Time for Vincent to speak. He placed his manila envelope on the counter and laid out the letter, the slip, the old photo, one by one. I came here 2 days in a row to fix something simple. Stop charging me for what I didn't buy. He spoke like reading a bread recipe. I was treated like an indigent because my balance wasn't impressive. He looked at the board member and then at the people in line. I used to be the stamp kid. Then I was the phone guy. Then I sat on the other side of the table. I learned along the way that banks exist because we trust what's written is worth something. If the word falls, the house falls. The branch held its breath. When he pocketed the old photo, someone whispered behind, "It's him," without explaining who. The board member made the gesture that would move the hands on the clock. He invited Vincent to state his full name. Not an order, a right. Vincent breathed, measured, and said, "Vincent August Lane." The last name reached the ears of 2 older customers, who exchanged glances. Helen blinked. The auditor didn't react. The board member completed the part no one dared say. Former president of the bank, retired 8 years. The branch's ground shifted. No shouts. A thick silence as people reorganized invisible relations. Mark clenched his jaw. A muscle trembled on his face. He spoke not to justify himself, but like admitting a mistake for the first time. I was wrong. I thought identity and value were the same thing, and I got used to shortcuts because they pay fast. The board member didn't absolve him, but offered the only path that works when the floor breaks: responsibility. There's a price, and you can change course. Helen made it explicit for all to hear. Mr. Rogers is suspended and will face an administrative process. He'll receive guidance, and the case goes to the conduct committee. They asked Anna to describe what she did. She wanted to disappear. She didn't like speaking in public, much less in front of people who run skyscrapers, but she remembered her mother talking about courage and fear. She told them about the stamp, the printed trail, asking Roger for a heads up, the email sent at night. She was concise and clear. At the end, the board member commented, "That's how you hold the house together, small actions that don't give in." 2 timid claps grew into applause. Anna blushed and willed herself not to cry. She didn't. Then came the immediate, visible, concrete consequence. The board member signed a provisional directive right there. From now on, no additional service would be charged without a 2-step consent screen in plain language and a moral receipt, a printed summary, stamped for the customer to take. "If we're bringing back the stamp, let it record clarity, not imposition," he said, giving the old gesture back the honor targets had stolen. The branch ritual, old and automatic, returned transformed. Stamping would now mean respect. A man in line raised his hand. "Can I talk?" "You can. They pushed a package on me too. I came back 3 times. Today, just seeing this, I feel treated. The cascade effect of public justice. You fix one, you reach 10. The branch, once a center of daily micro-humiliations, tasted a rare state of collective repair. And Mark, he didn't run or shout. He stood there, a man holding a pile of bad choices, and made the decision he needed to make, though no one could make it for him. He approached Anna and Vincent. "I apologize to you and everyone, and thank you, Anna. If I'd had an Anna at the start, maybe I'd have taken another street." Anna didn't romanticize. "You have one today." He nodded. "If they let me, I want to fix what I can." The board member promised nothing. Responsibility is above all what you do when nobody claps. The clapping had stopped. The work began. Helen closed the meeting with a kind of invitation to vigilance. If you find an error, bring it. If you have proof, show it. The bank must earn your staying. And in a tiny repayment only Anna noticed, she stamped the directive summary in front of everyone, bringing the stamp down with a firmness that said, "This paper counts." Vincent gathered his papers, pocketed the old photo, the slip, the letter. Then, before leaving, he took out the black metal card and spun it between his fingers. "I still prefer this counter," he said, touching the ledge, "because this is where the truth lands." He left the card on the counter, not as show-off, but as a material reminder that things have layers. By late afternoon, the branch returned to its rhythm of bills and hurried smiles. but nothing was quite the same. The stamp now had renewed meaning. Anna felt the good weight of the gesture each time she stamped a consent receipt, a brief, crisp sound that seemed to say, "We agreed." It was as if that sound echoed the previous morning when she stamped Vincent's notebook for the first time, unaware she was triggering an invisible chain. Roger passed by the counter with 2 coffees. "For the heroine." "No heroine here, Roger. Just tired people trying not to get it wrong." He laughed. "That's heroism." Eric showed a sheet of notes. "I copied your email and made a checklist for us. Want to see?" Anna reviewed, corrected one point, added another. Quietly, they were building a small culture that inoculated against shortcuts. Anna's phone pinged, a message from Helen. "As agreed, we'd like you on the practices committee. Bi-weekly, flexible time. No conflict with your shift. And if needed, we can meet at the clinic." Anna replied, "Okay," and added a stamp emoji. She smiled to herself, a little goofy. She thought of her mother, likely napping lightly on the couch. She thought of the rent, which wouldn't drop because of any committee. And still, she felt a new thread weaving, someone beginning to have a voice after always being the hands. Vincent returned quietly at closing time. He said he'd dropped a staple and came to pick it up. A gentle lie. He'd come to say a proper goodbye. "How's your mother?" "Better." "Then everything really is better." He set the envelope on the counter and took out an odd gift. An old wooden stamp that read, "Confirmed," in a vintage font. Used it for years. Doesn't fit protocols anymore, but it fits memory, if you'll take it. Anna received it with both hands as if holding something fragile and valuable. It's heavy. It's the weight of the hand. You know how to use it. Before leaving, Vincent gave the branch one last look in that way she'd learned to recognize. A sweep from someone measuring more than square footage. He paused where Mark liked to raise his voice. Paused by the glass office. Paused by the kiosk promising to care for every stage of your life. He smiled, small and real. It does care when someone cares from the inside. And he left, without fanfare. The next day, everyone's life went on, as it does. Mark faced the process, gave his answers, heard hard truths, chose a route less shiny and more right. No happy ending in the applause sense, but consequence, and maybe learning with time. Helen was bitten by emails, minutes, timelines, and kept defending the obvious with the calm of someone who knows obvious things need advocates. The auditor moved on to another branch with his black briefcase and efficient silence. Roger played roots with his daughters on Sunday. Eric bought a new notebook and wrote on the first page, "Don't sell in the dark," and Anna. Anna woke early Monday, fried an egg, set soup to simmer, tucked the blanket around her mother, took 2 buses, opened the register at 8:01, checked cash, aligned the bills, tested the machine, picked up the stamp, breathed, smiled. The ritual returned, yes, transformed. Now each stamp recalled the question that echoed in the lobby, since when does dignity fit on a statement? And each stamp answered in its way with a visible mark that said, it was agreed, it was clear, it was correct. At closing, before pulling down the steel shutter, Anna wrote a small note, folded it and tucked it in the drawer. Moral worth isn't in the balance. It's in what we do when no one sees. Not a slogan. A reminder for the days that try to crush the wrist of the one who stamps. She turned off the light, shut down the system, set the stamp in place, inhaled deeply. The branch slept. And for the first time in a long while, she felt that on the inside, the house had more written on it than before.